Good morning, everybody. Here I am coming to you from the antique store that is my father's house. Well, what used to be my father's house. It's going to be sold in the next few weeks. And I am just coming on here to share some personal updates. It is Wednesday, July 23rd. I'm still in my loungy pajamas, still having my coffee this morning. I also have some water because I like to have several beverage options. Um, and I just wanted to share some personal updates. It's been a while since I have hopped on here. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Look at you, first comment. Um, and I just wanted to share some updates with you. If you're on my newsletter list, then I recently shared a post that I wrote on my blog, which you can also go to Amar.energy. Actually, let me just find it for you. I can send you the link for you guys to read the most recent blog post. I'm going to link it right here, just getting the URL copied. So if you want to catch up on my update, hey Jolene, hey Weevil Girl, then you can follow that link to read the most recent blog post just a couple of days ago. Let's see. I mean, where do I want to begin? If you've been following me for any length of time, then I've been sharing very publicly and very openly about the challenges of my life, about the uncertainty in my life over the past 6 years since I left Los Angeles in 2019. Hey, Holly. Um, And I know I'm not alone. Let's just acknowledge that first. Like me talking about how intense the past 7, 9, actually 15 years have been. I know I'm not alone. So, this isn't me standing up to say I'm the only one that's had a hard time over the past few years. I know it's been sort of an epidemic. I think most humans over the past few years, especially, if not even longer, have had a lot of intensity. It's been a lot of endings, a lot of collapses, a lot of changes, a lot of, death and rebirth and death and rebirth and, all of the cycles. And I think personally speaking, hey, meow, I think over the past, actually, even just the past few months, I have gone through the full spectrum of human emotion. Personally speaking, I can point to a couple of astrological transits that were really intense for me. Neptune and Pisces was one, and it just recently ended, and that was like a 15-year cycle. And then within that, there was what was it? Uranus in Taurus, I believe, and now Uranus has gone into Gemini, which has been a big shift. Let's just suffice it to say, there's been a whole lot of major astrological shifts in the first 6 months of this year. I have been talking about it, and I'm not even an astrologer. There are other sources. Pam Gregory is one of my favorite resources for current, up-to-date, really sort of forward-thinking, future-thinking astrology. So she has information on her channel that is much more comprehensive than anything I can offer. Suffice it to say, these changes in the astrology, and it's mostly the generational planets, right? The planets that take, decades, if not more, to go through an entire cycle. And we've seen most of them go into fire and water signs, which are, or fire and air signs, which are masculine, action oriented, forward moving, outward expansive, sort of outward facing energies. And we've just had a lot of big changes. Also, a lot of the big planets have gone into 0 degrees of Aries, and 0 degrees of Aries is the creator degree because Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. So Aries always marks a new turn on the zodiac cycle. And then 0 degrees of any sign is the initiation into that sign. But to see 0 degrees of Aries, which is the beginning of the beginning of the beginning, really, I think, has been a harbinger of huge change and big, big shifts in just humanity collectively. Let me know in the comments if that's what you guys have been experiencing too. Anyway, for me personally, this has meant that basically since 2010, my life has been in a state of like rising and falling, like collapsing and being reborn pretty much nonstop. And it's been excruciating. It's been wonderful. It's been illuminating. I've learned so much. It's been humbling. It's been expanding. Like it's been all the things. And in 2019, I left Los Angeles, moved to Colorado with my sister and brother-in-law. What I had anticipated was going to be just like 6 to 9 months to work on my book and just kind of regroup and reset, because I could tell that Los Angeles wasn't really where I wanted to be anymore. Of course, when I left in August of 2019, not 6 months later, the whole world exploded with lockdown and the pandemic and all of that. So what I thought was going to be 6 to 9 months turned into almost 6 years. And then in the midst of that, there was also me going to live with my sister, or my mom and my stepdad, in rural Kansas. And then a year ago, I came here to rural Wyoming, and the town that I grew up in, to help my father transition into assisted living because he's in the early stages of Alzheimer's. That's sort of the groundwork and the foundation. I have really felt like I've often said, yeah, Uranus and Gemini is a big kick in the pants. It really is. I'm feeling that energy big time. And I think also Mars is in Virgo right now. And, I'm a mega Virgo. I have so many placements in Virgo in my chart. That this Mars energy of let's go, let's act, let's take action, let's, be passionate and dynamic, and let's go out there and create ripples in the pond. That Mars energy that just wants to do, and wants to mix it up and doesn't really care, right? Like Mars is that, like, let's just go out and cause some trouble kind of energy, I think sometimes. Anyway, I have really, over the past year, being with my father, and there's so many layers and levels to it, not only just helping him transition his life from being independent to being in assisted living, the father son dynamic and the issues that we had just as family, the unresolved daddy issues that I had, being able to see my father in this way, in this reality, in this context. My father and I have never spent this much time together one-on-one, because as a child there was always my mom and my sister sort of being in the mix and kind of a buffer. Anyway, long story short, my life was pretty consumed by the completion of all of this family karma, all of these family contracts. What's been fascinating to me is to watch how much of an impact my father's transition has had on the entire family. Of course, it makes sense that it would. But personally speaking, I've never gone through anything like this. So this is kind of like my first time at the rodeo, so to speak. Anyway, parallel to this, I've also been going through my own experience, my own process, my own expansion, my own growth, my own collapse, my own rebirth. I've had this vision in my mind since I started my practice back in 2012, a vision of a physical location that will, eventually be a temple of healing, a temple of community, a temple of sustenance and resource and support, a temple of connection, like all of the things. And the idea for this temple has morphed and changed over the years, but it's always been the constant thing in my practice through all of the changes and all of the big shifts that I have personally gone through. The one constant has been this vision for this center. So a couple of years ago, I was getting a lot of messages about Santa Fe and moving to Santa Fe, and that would be a great place in the Santa Fe Taos area to find property, to build the thing and do the thing. Well, I was moving in that direction, and I was starting to lay the groundwork for that plan, and then life had other plans, and ended up coming here to Wyoming to be with my father last year. So everything else went on hold. Pretty much my entire life came to a pause, and everything that I did for the most part over the past year has been in service of my dad. That has been one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. And what I really, really know is that in order to find true safety and true clarity and true connection and true guidance, we must surrender. We must fully surrender to our divinity and to the larger awareness that moves through us. And I had been resisting that. I'd been, it'd been a journey of incremental surrender, like a little bit at a time and a little bit at a time. And then finally, over this past year, I just kind of ripped it open and was like, all right, spirit, take it all. Whatever is no longer mine, whatever doesn't serve me, whatever doesn't suit me, whatever's done, just take it all. I got so tired of resisting. And then the past year has gone by like that, like just being so consumed with everything that my father needed to support him. Now he's in assisted living. He's been there for a couple of months. I'm in his house still, surrounded by what's left of his personal possessions. For the past month and a half, been working with an auction company to sell off all of his stuff so that we can make sure that he's set up financially for the rest of his life. The house is going on the market in a couple of weeks. It's just been this rapid acceleration. So meanwhile, I have still felt like I have been in this timeout with spirit and this period of deep purification and deep initiation. Like a month and a half ago, it just switched. Like I had gotten so used to living in this experience that felt restrictive, that felt really small, that felt really limited. And my life was really limited because everything that I was being asked to focus on was family stuff, was internal stuff, my own stuff. And so my life was really, really small. Literally, up until like a month ago, I didn't even have a car. When I lived in Colorado, didn't have a car. Literally was like a prisoner in that house, going to the store once a week with my brother-in-law. We would drive to the store, and that was pretty much my outing. Unless I had a doctor's appointment or something specific to do, I lived at that house. Same thing with my mom and my stepdad. I had access to their car. I could use their car, but it wasn't mine. Same thing with being here with my dad. He let me use his car, but I didn't have a lot of freedom. The freedom that I had access to was, are you going to surrender or not? And so I finally did. And I just sort of gave into it and said, okay, thy will be done. It's going to be as intense and as limited as it's going to be until it's not. And literally, that's how it happened one day about a month and a half ago. And I'd be curious to go back and see what astrological transit was shifting it around that time, because I do feel that a lot of these changes can be attributed to the astrology. I wouldn't say that it's only the astrology, right? There's always multiple layers of influence that's happening in our lives. But for me personally, I could really track the changes in my life and mark them by the astrological transits. Anyway, so like a month and a half ago, I just kind of woke up one day and I was like, wait a minute, something has changed. Let me know in the comments if you guys have been feeling this too. Like it was like something had changed in the atmosphere. I was like, oh, something is different. And it wasn't necessarily different in the external world. It wasn't like waking up and suddenly someone had moved all the furniture while I was sleeping. It was no, there was an internal shift, big time. And I just kind of watched it. I didn't really know what it meant, to be honest. And frankly, it's almost like I had a little bit of PTSD. Like the past 7 years, it has seemed like at every single turn, I thought I had a plan. I thought I had a way forward. I thought I knew what was going to happen. And spirit was just saying, nope, nope, nope. That's not what we're doing. Nope, not yet. Nope, not today. Nope, not going to happen. And there were so many false starts. I was planning on moving to Amsterdam at one point. I was planning on moving to Asheville at one point. I was planning on moving to Santa Fe. And all of these plans just got squashed. Nothing ever happened. It never came to fruition. So I just kind of gave it all up. So there was a little bit of me not really sure if I could trust it. I think for me personally, that's been one of the biggest things that has surprised me, is how small my sense of self got and how small I began to think of myself. Not because I didn't think that I was worthy or had value. I think that there was just a part of me that had just accepted, well, maybe my life isn't going to go the way that I thought. Maybe the plans that I've had aren't going to come to pass. Maybe I've just been really off on my intuition. And so it really became a matter of learning to trust myself again and to really trust that the path is open and that things have started to soften and become more fluid and the rigidity of the past 7 years was done. And look, I get it. I've been doing this work for almost 15 years. I know this without a doubt. Sometimes the plans that we have are overridden by the plan that the larger self has. It's not to say that our plans aren't important or that they can't come to life, but if there's an agenda that the soul or the higher self has, that's going to trump any plan that we can have from our human perspective. That's just the way it is. The agenda that we are here expressing and living and fulfilling is the one of our higher aspects. And that's why the human experience was chosen, so that the higher self and the soul self could go through its experience. And so it was a really powerful reminder at every turn of like, dude, yes, you're important, you are powerful, you are meaningful, and you're also part of something much greater that has an agenda that includes you, but that is not only about you. So I kind of just gave into it. And when things started to feel like they were opening up, I was like, oh, can I trust this? And I basically said to spirit, like, I'm not interested in any more false starts. I cannot handle another bait and switch dead end. So I'm not doing anything unless you make it crystal clear, not because I don't believe you or I don't trust you, but because I'm tired. I am tired of my life collapsing. I am tired of this sense of being stuck or being blocked or being held in place because there's a larger agenda at play that I can't seem to fully comprehend. And I did my job of giving in. And I was kind of at this place of like, okay, spirit, now it's your turn to do your job of clearing the path, and it needs to be crystal clear. So after a couple of weeks of kind of acclimating to this new energy, I was like, well, what's the first thing I need to do? What's the first thing I want to know? Because I had really started to trust this sense of like things are opening up, and I was starting to receive little nuggets here and there. I was trading readings with a friend who does Akashic record stuff, and so I was getting a lot of information from the Akash guides. I was doing a lot of my own divination. I had gotten a reading at the end of last year, a tarot astrology reading forecast for this upcoming year. And so I was starting to piece together all these things. And I was like, oh, I think I can actually trust this. Like, this is feeling like these changes are real and actual. At the same time, suddenly an opportunity for my dad to move into this assisted living facility that we've been trying for like a year to get him into. Um, Suddenly they had a space available. So it was like, okay, let's scramble and get that taken care of. I got my dad into assisted living. That was around the time that I felt this big shift in my own energy. And so one day I said, okay, if things really are open, then the first bit of information that I want access to is, where am I going next? I had still had my sights set on Santa Fe. I had, been on Zillow and like apartment search places with all of these alerts and searches set for apartments in Santa Fe and Taos area. Like, I was still in my mind thinking that's where I'm going to go. And so I thought, well, the first thing that I should get clear on is, where am I going next? Because I knew that it was going to be time to leave soon. So I decided to do a cannabis journey. One day I was like, okay, I'm just going to sit down and I'm going to go into deep, deep connection with cannabis and with spirit. Excuse me. I love cannabis as medicine for expanding my awareness and really opening up to receive super, super deep insight and guidance. And so I sat down, started my journey, breathed, found my center, did the whole thing. Literally 5 minutes. And the intention that I set for that journey was, I said, all I want is clarity about where I'm going next. I said, I don't care if it's Santa Fe. I would love it if it's Santa Fe, but I'm not attached to it. If it's not Santa Fe, that's totally fine. I just want to know where I'm going next. I don't really care where it is. I have my own hopes about where I would like it to be. But again, at this point in my life, I have learned that what I want isn't always going to happen in the way that I want it to. Anyway, sat down, dropped in, set my intention, connected. About 5 minutes in, my mind finally started to settle and, like, find the space of clarity. Boom. Almost immediately, it was like the credits rolling up at the end of a movie. One word in like 48-point bold font, all caps, Sedona. Like the word, I remember it so clearly, like it just rose up in front of my eyes, like I was watching it on a screen, and I was like, "What?" I said that out loud. I kept my eyes closed. I didn't break the connection, but I gasped. I was like, "What? Sedona? Are you kidding me?" It wasn't that I wasn't open to Sedona. I love Sedona. I went there the first time a few years ago, had an amazing time. I've always been drawn there, but there were just all of these. I had made up this story in my head that I couldn't, either I can't afford Sedona, or it's too expensive, it's too hot, there's too many spiritual seekers there, there's too many whatever, whatever. Like all of these reasons that were just made up. I mean, the mind had no way of knowing what was, what was really true about the potential for Sedona. Anyway, I was like, okay, Sedona, wow, that is a surprise. That was totally unexpected. I reached out to a friend a couple of days, or after that journey later that day, I reached out to a friend who is someone that I trust implicitly. And I was like, girl, I just need to tell you, like, this is what just happened. I think that I can trust this intel. It feels accurate, but I would just love your thoughts. Like he's someone that I can go to when I need a trustworthy opinion, and I know he will tell me honestly his perspective. He also does this work, so he's very intuitively tapped in. Anyway, his response surprised me, and he was like, 100% without question. I can see you in Sedona. That sounds amazing. That sounds perfect. Like, of course it would be. And it started to become more real. Then, like 2 days after that journey, because then I was just kind of like spinning my wheels, because in my mind, I had convinced myself that Santa Fe was where I was going to go and where I was going to end up next. And it wasn't that I was resisting Sedona. I was more than happy to let go of Santa Fe. It's just, I was really trying to wrap my head around this completely unexpected turn of events. So one day, I've been here cleaning out my dad's house, working with the auction company to just get everything cleared out and organized and donated and categorized and all of that. So there was a bunch of closets over here on the other side of the room that I was going through, just cleaning stuff out, and okay, what's here for sale, what's here for donation, what is there anything I want to keep, whatever. I found this pile of paintings, just like paintings on canvas or canvas board, that hadn't been framed or mounted or anything. And I was just rifling through them. I'm not kidding you. In the middle, and I wish I had that painting to show you, but in the middle of this pile of paintings was a painting of Sedona, Oak Creek. On the back of this painting, actually, the painting was turned around. So the first thing I saw was the back of the painting that said Sedona, Oak Creek, 2006. And I was like, what? Turned it around. There is a painting of Sedona, Oak Creek, and I think it's Cathedral Rock. I was speechless. Are you kidding me? This whole time there's been a paint. What are the odds that a painting of Sedona would be in my father's house? I mean, it's not surprising on one hand because my father has so much stuff that was unexpected. I mean, what the WTF has been my constant exclamation this whole time living with my father and trying to make sense of all of this, because he's a bit of a hoarder, as you can see, based upon the sheer volume of stuff behind me. Anyway, that was kind of it. Like, I saw that painting and I was like, okay, like, is there any other proof that could be more powerful? If I didn't believe it then, I certainly do believe it now. So Sedona it is. And I just started making plans. I started figuring out where I was going to go, what I was going to do, how I was going to get there. In the meantime, my father also had to surrender his driver's license because he can't drive anymore. So he gave me his car, and then I traded it in for a different car. So now I have a car, and that just kind of fell into my lap. So it's like all of these things were lining up like bam, bam, bam. Found an Airbnb, booked it next week. I'm arriving in Sedona. I'm going to stay for a couple of weeks while I look for an apartment. I have a couple of connections there in Sedona, so I'll hook up with them when I get there. Like, it's just happening. It's just happening, and it's astounding to me because I can feel on the one hand like the path is opening up, and I am being called, and I have these moments of insecurity and doubt because it's been so long, 7 years since I have felt any real sense of freedom. And so I think the biggest challenge for me has been trusting this turn of events, which is really just trusting myself. What I know to be true is a lack of trust or faith in God, the universe, spirit, whatever, is just a lack of faith or trust in myself. That's all it's reflecting back to me. And every single time that I tap in and connect and ask for guidance, I get the exact same message every single time that says, all you have to do is show up. You don't have to know how it's going to happen. You don't have to know when it's going to happen. You don't have to know how any of the details are going to unfold. You don't have to know anything. You just have to show up and take action. Take the action and book your Airbnb. Take the action and make the steps, make the choices, and just show up, and everything else will just be opened for you. So that's what I'm doing. And it's astounding to me. And I've had to remind myself over and over of the fact that when I was 18, I left this town, Cody, Wyoming, and moved to Seattle. I'd never been there. I just knew that was where I needed to go. Moved to Seattle at 18 years old, lived there for almost 10 years. Same thing. Was suddenly getting the call, oh, I need to move to New York. So I found a job in New York with the company I was working for as a makeup artist, transferred to New York, had never been there before, lived there for 7 years. Same thing when I moved to Los Angeles, when I moved to San Francisco, I had never been there before. Maybe I'd gone to the airport or done an overnight in a hotel, but I'd never lived there or spent time there. And every single time I knew in my gut that that was where I needed to go. And I never doubted it. I trusted it explicitly and just said, okay, this is where I'm going. This is what I'm going to do. And I would just decide that's what I was going to do. And it would just happen. And so my friend was reminding me of this when I was having a moment of doubt. And I was like, do you can I trust this? Like, is this really happening? And he was like, you need to remember who the hell you are. He was like, you need to remember everything that you've done in your life. And when you were 18 and you were fearless and you just left Wyoming on a whim with your mom driving you to Seattle, she found you an apartment, dumped you off, and drove back to Wyoming, and you were suddenly living on your own at 18 years old. So it's just been a constant series of reminders of the benevolence of the universe, and more than anything, what the past 7 years has really created within me, which I didn't really realize was happening, right? As my life was continuing to fall apart over the past 7 years, and everything that I built felt like it was dying. And then I started to see this rebirth and was like, oh, okay, so there is, here is the silver lining. Here is the dawn after the darkness. Simultaneously with all of that, what was also developing within me was this really deep faith within myself, this trust and this faith within myself. And when life had fallen apart to the degree that there was nothing left, like all I had was like my body and my awareness. It's like I was stripped of everything. And in many ways, it was like I was taken back to that experience of coming into this life in the first place, right? When you're born, all you have is your body and your awareness and that divine spark. That is it. You don't have a sense of identity necessarily. You don't have a sense of history necessarily. You certainly don't have any experience in that incarnation as a newborn infant. And I felt like this is where I had returned. Like I have been stripped of everything. And the only thing I had over the past 7 years was my sense of self and truth and the awareness and the consciousness that I am. And that was all I could rely on. And when that's all I had no choice but to trust it. The only option I had ultimately, and I think this is really what the big picture has been, that what it all came down to was I have to bet on myself. What it all came down to was I have to trust myself. I have to have faith in myself. This is the scene, and I said this in the blog post. This is the scene in the movie of my life where I put all of my chips on one bet. It's all in. There is no plan B. There is only plan A, and that is moving to Sedona, find an amazing place to live, and set myself up for the next chapter of happily ever after, because that's all I have. There's literally nowhere else for me to go. There's nowhere else I want to go. I have cleared all of the karma with my family. My sister, my brother-in-law, my mom, my stepdad, my father. It is all good. It is all clear. The balance sheet is corrected and accurate and balanced. The slate has been wiped clean, and I am free. And the only thing that Spirit is asking of me is get your ass to Sedona, and the rest will come to you. The rest will unfold. You just have to show up and make the steps. And I was saying the other day to a friend, the same friend, I was saying, it feels like a huge leap of faith. And he was like, yeah, it feels like a huge leap of faith. He's like, but it's not, because you know where the path is calling you. You know what your guidance is telling you. You know what Spirit is offering you when you're asking for support and, reminders and encouragement. You've gone through a cycle of loss and collapse. He said, this is the pivot. He said, this is when life stops taking from you and starts giving back to you. He said, so it's not a leap of faith if it's already done. He said, it's already guaranteed. It's already going to happen. It's already written. Like, this is the next chapter of your life. He was like, so it's not a leap of faith. He was like, it's just you showing up and arriving at the next point on your journey. And I was like, wow, that is a really beautiful way to look at it. That's a really beautiful way to look at it. So here I am, putting it all on the line, putting all of my chips on the table for one roll of the dice. It's plan A. That's the only plan. I have no contingency. I have no backup. I am my safety net. Spirit is my support system. I am doing the trust fall back into myself, knowing that I am going to land in the perfect place at the perfect time, the perfect set of circumstances. So that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing. I'm just going. So my Airbnb is booked for next week. I'm going to be there for 2 weeks. I'm going to find an apartment and I'm going to go. And I can't wait. And I'm leaving in like 3 days. And I still have a ton of stuff I have to do before I'm ready to go. But it's happening and I'm super excited. And for those of you who have been following me over the past few years, you know how challenging this time has been. I've been really, really transparent and vocal about it. If you sign up for my newsletter, I share all of the developments there. There's actually a playlist here on my YouTube channel. It's the What the WTF playlist. And that was something I did last year, spring of last year when I was still in Colorado, where I was basically just like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where I'm going. I'm just showing up. And so if you're interested in just kind of following along, you can watch the videos in that playlist. But I'm just doing what feels like the right choice. And I'm taking the step that feels like the right step. And I'm just showing up, trusting, putting all of my faith, all of my trust in self and spirit, knowing that the next step is the right step and that it's the only step. Because I could find ways to justify staying here for the next 6 months if I tried hard enough. There would be a million reasons why I could convince myself to stay. And what I find to be fascinating is, the resilience of the human spirit and the human mechanism, our body and our mind and our emotions and all of that, is we're incredibly resilient. And we can accustom and acclimate ourselves to pretty much any set of circumstances. And once we find our groove, once we find a way to, if not thrive in those circumstances, at least survive those circumstances, once we find a way to do that, what's fascinating is the same part of us that is resistant to that. And this is me speaking from my own experience. 6 years ago, almost 7 years ago, when I left LA and moved to Colorado, There was a part of me that was so resistant to that. And then through those almost 6 years in Colorado, I found myself getting accustomed to those circumstances. And the same part of me that was so resistant to enter that space was the same part of me that was so resistant to leave that space. So it's like our resilience sometimes can work against us because once the mind finds stasis and finds a comfortable or a comfort zone, the comfort zone isn't always comfortable, but it's familiar, right? Once the mind finds that and begins to construct a context for itself within that, it's going to fight to stay there even if it doesn't really want to be there, or even if that's less than ideal. All of this is to say that is what I'm butting up against now, is the part of me that wants to justify why I need to stay or why I can't go or why I need, just one more thing. No, I'm going. It's booked. It's done. I'm leaving in 3 days. And that's it. So I'm sharing this because I'm sharing this, first of all, just because I want to share, just because I want to update you. And I think one of the common threads through all of my practice and all of my content is being very, very transparent about what's happening within my life. I know that part of what I agreed to do in this lifetime was come in and be here as an example. So I have a tendency in my life to go through things a few steps before the collective so that I can report back with intel of like, this is what happened. This is what it was like. This is perhaps what you can expect. So, aside from just wanting to show up and share with you, I'm also doing this because I know I'm not the only one who is standing here and asking spirit, what do I do now? Where do I go? What am I supposed to be doing? What's the point, the purpose, and the path? Sometimes you just have to keep showing up. Sometimes it's not going to be clear for a while. Sometimes you're only going to get one little teeny breadcrumb at a time. Sometimes you're only going to get, if the plan is this big, sometimes you're only going to get one little corner of it, one step, one choice, one move. And if that's all you have, then that's enough. If something isn't currently available to you, then it's because it's not time for you to have it or you don't need it. And that was the hardest thing for me to surrender, was my own will and my own insistence that it needs to go this way and it has to happen that way and it needs to be now. Spirit was saying, yeah, I know what you want, but it's not what it's time for. So ultimately, I don't think it's ever about giving up the dream or the vision, but it is about understanding that we are always showing ourselves where we are. If we really pay attention, life is always showing us exactly what's happening. It's just sometimes we don't want to see it, or we're so stuck in something else or focused on something else that we're not paying attention, or we're in our head when we need to be in the body, or vice versa. So, what I can offer to anybody who is feeling like, what the WTF am I supposed to do? I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. It's okay if it doesn't make sense. It's okay if you don't know what you're doing. It's okay if you don't know where you're going. You can still show up. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm doing it anyway. Besides the fact that I'm going to Sedona, I don't know where I'm going. That's all I know. And I'm going anyway. I don't know how things are going to unfold, and I'm going anyway. It's not up to me. People ask me all the time, well, how's it going to happen? What are you going to do? Well, honestly, that's none of my business. That's spirit's job. It's not up to me. It's not up to me. So I think part of it is realizing that there's a lot less that we have to do than we think we do. This is also a part of the shift into this new earth reality where creation and manifestation is a totally different ballgame, because we don't have to effort ourselves to death. We don't have to burden ourselves. We don't have to carry all of the stuff on our shoulders. It's really remembering that it is a co-creative, collaborative process with self and spirit. And we are here to do what we are here to do. And most of the time, the most powerful thing that we have access to is simply giving ourselves completely to the moment. especially when what's in the moment isn't something that we really want, right? I fought the past 6 years, I spent so much energy fighting. I spent so much energy resisting and saying, "No, I don't wanna do that. No, I don't wanna be here. No, I don't want that either. I wanna be here. I wanna go there. I wanna do that." And Spirit was saying, "Okay, well, you can get there someday, but that's not where you are right now. Where you are right now is where you are, so accept that. Love that. Embrace that. Be curious about that." So if I could give any piece of advice, and I'm not really in the business of advice, but if I was, I would say, give yourself completely to whatever is in front of you, because there is a reason it's in front of you. There is a method to the madness. There is clarity in the chaos. But you're only going to find that clarity when you give yourself to what is there. To continue to fight it and resist it and reject it and deny it is not going to make it go away. It's not going to make it resolve itself any faster. In fact, it's only going to prolong the experience and prolong the inevitable. So give yourself to your life, give yourself to yourself. And that is the only thing that I have found that really brings deep understanding and big clarity and insight and really allows the process to move forward and to open up, and it releases the path. So you just have to accept it. You have to give into it. You don't have to like it, but you do have to say yes to it because there's a reason. There's a reason. And most of the time, we're not going to know what the reason is until we're already in it. And that's just how it is. So, anyway, I just wanted to hop on and update you. I'll be probably continuing to share as I go through this process. I'm going to be apartment hunting. I'm going to be, just exploring Sedona. I've only been there for like 3 or 4 days. In my previous trip, I went there with a friend and we just hung out for a few days. So I haven't spent a ton of time exploring and hiking. I'm also laughing at the fact that I'm going there in the hottest month of the year. August is traditionally pretty much a scorcher in that part of the world. So I'm like, wait, why am I doing it in August? Could I really have waited until September? But that's fine. I'm going now. It's fine. My car has air conditioning. My Airbnb has air conditioning. My apartment will too. So I'm not worried about it. But I just wanted to come in and say hi, wanted to catch up with you, share my update with you, sending you love, hoping you're doing well. And I'll continue to share and keep you posted with developments as they unfold. Um, and you can always sign up for my newsletter. The link is in the description box below. If you feel like you want to donate to my moving fund, the description box also has donation links to Stripe and to PayPal. I just wanted to come on and hang out with you, spend some time. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll keep you posted. So I wish I could say next stop Sedona, but I'm actually stopping in Colorado for a couple of days to stay with my sister and brother-in-law, and then I'll be in Sedona. So eventually the next stop is Sedona, but not for a few more days. Love you. Thank you. Take care of yourself. Love each other. And just give yourself to whatever's in front of you because it will make sense eventually. I promise you at some point, things will open up and you'll move in a new direction, but you have to give yourself to what is there. You just have to give yourself to it. And you never know what's on the other side. Santa Fe would have been an amazing experience. I love that area and I know it would have been magical. But Sedona to me is like 100 times more exciting and interesting than Santa Fe. So my willingness to give up my dream momentarily or put that vision on a shelf is actually what allowed me to take that vision back in a more expanded, more fulfilling, more exciting version. So just because you have to give something up doesn't mean you're giving it up forever. Sometimes it just needs to change or morph or develop in a new direction, and then it will reveal itself to you again. But either way, just give yourself to what's in front of you. Just live your life as fully committed as you can, and that's the best that you can do. All right, y'all. I got to get back to packing. Got a lot to do. I love you. Thanks so much for hanging out and for spending some time with me this morning. Have a great week. Mwah. Chat with you soon. Bye, everybody.